area here on the course, a little breeze flowing through. I love it. It's much better than the alternate, right? Whereas, could not be anywhere,
That is true.
so.
That is true. We just saw Robbie Stanley get a tee shot off here as he rolls through the course. You said it was pretty good, right?
Yeah,
From
he had a
Robbie out
good
there?
shot. I actually see him over there now in the blue. I see him all the way over there. He had a good shot and he posed. He stood there and I guess he wanted us to take a picture or something. I don't know, but it was a good shot. I'll give him credit for that.
Held the finish. We got plenty of local celebrities out here today at the 615 Open. Again, benefiting Souls for Souls. It's the best type of golf you can play. Play a little scramble out there where, not every shot has to count. It's perfect for my game when only one of my clubs actually wants to work per round. So, fun time out here at Hermitage Golf Course. We are live right behind the, I believe this is the first tee. Again, we're going to talk some Titans offense here in this first hour. We talked a lot of defense yesterday. And again, that 4 o'clock hour is for you. Text or call. Let us know what you want to know from TD. We'll also talk some college football and much more. Do you want to mention news yesterday? Tennessee advancing to the College World Series Championship Series, and they will now face off with Texas A&M starting on Saturday. So an opportunity, Tennessee playing for a national championship. TD, I know a lot of Tennessee fans out there, maybe on the younger side, have never seen the Vols play for a national championship in anything, so it should be an exciting week for those fans out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be an exciting week. It will be an exciting week because that's what they went out there to see.
Yep.
Them win a championship, and I think the chances are pretty likely that they'll end up doing that. So, yeah, absolutely, man. Shout out to the Vols being able to get out there and kick some butt, man. Absolutely.
Taking on A&M Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, if necessary, out there to watch some baseball and drink some Jello shots, it seems, as Tennessee has put down 12,000 of those in that Rocco's Challenge in Omaha. A couple other notes here as we open up the show. J.J. Redick, Paul and Joe were just chatting about this, but J.J. Redick officially is the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. They swung and missed on Dan Hurley from UConn. It's one of the more interesting hires that you could have, pulling a guy straight off of television. Maybe give some Mike Mayock vibes from the Las Vegas Raiders a few years ago. We saw how that one worked out, but we'll see how J.J. Redick meshes with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in that group over there.
I like the word choice. Interesting. One thing that you'll see, especially like in black culture, that's a word we'll use. Interesting.
Not good, not bad. Interesting.
We'll say interesting rather than say
your true
what
feelings.
can really be said about it. So I'll echo that word. Look, man, you got Sam Cassell out there. Why the heck isn't Sam Cassell getting the opportunity to coach?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing I don't know if you follow Gilly on IG. Gilly is the man. He's a trip, man. And he said, he was like, I don't understand. This guy has never coached. You can't even go back and say, show me what you did in high school. There's nothing. He hasn't coached. And I get the whole idea of LeBron being the player coach, GM.
Yeah.
He probably got a little ownership to him also.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? And I say that jokingly, but it's just like, man, how come a guy like Sam Cassell can't get a shot?
It really doesn't make a ton of sense, but it is true. It's LeBron and Jeannie Buss are basically running that organization together, which is when you're a player of LeBron's caliber with his notoriety and everything that he's done, you do get certain privileges that other players don't get, but it just doesn't make a ton of sense. We've seen LeBron has run through so many coaches in the last 10 years since, Miami was the only place where he really kept one. Eric Spoelstra was there the whole time, and that's because Pat Riley was the guy in charge, not LeBron. Ever since he went back to Cleveland, he's just kind of cycled through different coaches.
And Spoelstra's a heck of a coach.
Oh, for sure.
Heck of a coach. And he's no pushover either. I know in the last hour they were talking about how, a lot of coaches are just kind of like, the organizations aren't run by the coach. Man, Miami,
Yes.
He's not one of those guys. I respect Eric Spoelstra to the fullest degree. So you do have, you got the Van Gundys, man.
Yeah.
How both the Van Gundy brothers out there and they're not come on, man.
Well, and
Stop.
Monty Williams, too. I follow the Phoenix Suns, and I loved Monty Williams when he was there.
Yeah.
I thought he should have gotten to stay in Phoenix. I thought DeAndre Ayton was more of the problem than Monty Williams. Mm-hmm. They decided to clean house and get rid of both of them.
Yeah,
but man,
really, though.
Monty Williams, could anybody have really done much with that Detroit Pistons situation
No,
this year? How do you
no.
fire the guy after
Yeah.
one season?
Yeah, they're like the Cleveland Indians in that movie Major League, man. Like
Yeah.
they want it to be bad. Like it was a mess, man. It was an absolute mess.
Again, J.J. Redick officially announced in the last hour here that he has gone on board as the Lakers' new head coach. That'll certainly be something to keep an eye on as we move towards the new NBA season, recently into the offseason. And I guess in the next couple weeks, see if one of his first moves is to draft LeBron James' son. Bronny James going to be one of the bigger names in the NBA draft, if not the biggest name. One more thing I wanted to get to here in this opening segment. I saw it come across my Twitter timeline yesterday. Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network reporting that there's at least been discussions, I don't know how far along these have gotten, that owners are talking about a separate salary cap for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That isn't included in the rest of the roster. I'm not really understanding the benefit of that.
When you got a guy like Trevor Lawrence
It's
taking up $55 million.
Shad Khan is leading those conversations.
Probably, you know what I mean? So, and I would imagine Jerry Jones knowing what he has to do with Dak in a little bit. I know that's going to, factor in. But no, seriously, I think it just is what it is, And this reminds me of when I remember Sam Bradford, he got drafted and he signed that crazy deal. It was like for $51 million or something like that. And, we're talking back early 2000s. He got drafted, and all of a sudden the rookie wage deal was something that came out. So I think it is a matter of these ownerships these owners trying to take ownership of the way this money's being distributed.
And it is funny. It happens right after that Trevor Lawrence deal where you see these quarterback contracts, they're starting to take up a larger and larger chunk of that salary cap.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would even work. I guess they would just put a hard cap on quarterback salary, say that quarterbacks, if you are the best quarterback in the league, you get paid $60 million. No one can get paid more than that, or whatever the number is. And then everybody else is in their own separate pool. I guess that's the way that they're talking about it.
The thing, is that legal? Is that legal?
Yeah.
Like,
I
can
don't
you
know.
say, hey, you can only earn so much? Like,
You can't make more than this, but everybody else can make.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson could go out and make $45 million as a wide receiver.
I don't know that that's legal. But the thing is with that, what you have happening is because of the way these salaries continue to elevate and the way the timing is, your guys, your Patrick Mahomes, your Joe Burrows, your Lamar Jacksons, these types that can help make others better. I know people are going to push back about Lamar Jackson, but look at what Mark Andrews does. So
Yes.
I'm not hearing that. You know what I mean? He helps make Mark Andrews a better player. Anyhow, the amount of guys available that can make that big money and not have to worry about having Jamar Chase, not have to worry about having Justin Jefferson. And I know Burrow has Chase, but I'm saying I think if Burrow didn't have Chase, he still would be good.
Yes.
And the amount of guys that you have that are able to do that, regardless of what's around them, is a very short list.
And we don't know how far along this development has gone. Maybe this is just somebody in passing saying, hey, maybe we should have a cap on quarterback salaries. So we don't know if this is something that's going to happen, but I just thought that was something interesting that no one had really brought up before, at least to my knowledge, of making this a cap separate from the rest of the team just for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I wonder when you talk about a cap, like a lid being put on earning opportunities, you look at the max contracts with NBA.
And that could be what it ends up being.
I wonder if it could be that type of thing.
Speaking of which, I think it was Pascal Siakam got about $50-something million per year.
Well, I'll tell you what.
We're talking about Trevor Lawrence's contract, and Pascal Siakam's over making about the same amount of money playing for the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to get involved. Again, coming up on the show, but in this first hour, for the most part, we're going to talk Titans offense, talk about what Brian Callahan is bringing here and what we could see, not just from Will Levis, but using that tandem of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears in the backfield. And what does the tight end situation look like with Chig and Josh Wiley out there? Going to talk a lot of Titans offense in this first hour. Then coming up at 4, usually Thursdays is the TD Power Hour with Jared Stillman. We didn't want to take that away from the audience out there. So if you have questions for TD, make sure to text those in 615-737-1025. We will get to those in the 4 o'clock hour. Then at 5, we'll talk some college football, a little Titan special teams, and we'll wrap things up from there on this Thursday evening. Again, Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman out here at Heritage Golf Course for the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company live out here at the Hermitage Golf Course, 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. Fun event out here. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman. Today on Stillman and Company, brought to you by Jared Company's Fire and Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division. Call 615-515-1270 or visit jaredcompaniesinc.com. Ian Safar back in the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Chatting about the Titans' offense here to start off the show. We talked defense yesterday, some of the depth where the Titans might have to make some additions before training camp or during training camp in order to fill out the roster. But the offense, TD, outside of Will Levis, I think the big question is, how different is this scheme going to look? Because I know as Titans fans, we're kind of used to the ground and pound offense, and I always thought the Titans kind of made it look harder than it needed to be on offense a lot of the time, no matter who was out there. It seems like it's going to be very different, and we're going to see a lot more throwing the football, a lot more three wide receiver sets, and I think that should be exciting for Titans fans heading into the first year of the Brian Callahan era.
Yeah, there's going to be more throwing the football, so you're definitely right there. And that exotic smash mouth combination, like you're not going to see too much of that anymore, that look. But one thing I do like is what Brian Callahan said, because I asked him about the balance and just how he's going to mix this thing up, because I don't care how good your passing game is, you have to be able to run the football.
Yes.
And he said, hey, don't get it twisted. Like when it's time to run the ball, we're going to run the ball. And I felt that should be music to the Titans fans' ears, because you're not going from a team that's known to run the ball mostly to passing the ball.
Air raid.
It's not going to be air raid, run and shoot. Like you're not going back to the Love Your Blue days, with Warren Moon going to Ernest Givens and Haywood Jeffrey and Curtis Duncan and Webster. Man, I used to love that team, man. Used to love those teams, boy. But you're not having that. So now you're going to see the balance, and I think that's really good. You look at some of Joe Mixon's numbers, right? I mean, look, 2021, he rushed for 1,200 yards. You know what I mean? He's had, out of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, he's had 4 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Now, obviously, with the schedule going to 17 games, it's easier to rush for 1,000 yards. But I'm talking about just the carries themselves, too. You look, 237 in 2018, 278, 292 in 2021.
Wow.
So he approached 300 carries.
Yeah.
So don't get it twisted. Callahan is going to run the football. You're going to see that, and we'll get into how they're going to do that in a moment, next segment. But in addition to that, I really like the creativity. And one of the things that before he was hired, I fell in love with the way Callahan is one of my favorite coaches in the league. And I'm saying that without him having been an actual play caller. But you look at some of his interviews and things like that, he talked about being versatile, but then he talked about, tendencies, right? And you establish tendencies. He's like, what are tendencies? Tendencies are things that you do well, right? And with those things that you do well, teams are going to know what you do well. But the thing is, everybody has this mindset of Callahan being, a happy-go-lucky. No.
Throw it all around, yeah.
He got some jerk in him. You know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, you're going to know what we do well, but guess what? If you try to stop it, we're going to still do it. But if you do happen to be able to slow it down, we're going to tweak it and work off of it. I think when you look at that, that's why I really like him. And there's a lot of other things just as far as just the way he goes into designing plays and things that we could get into that I really like.
Those numbers from Joe Mixon, 292 carries in 2021. That's not something, when you think of Joe Mixon, you didn't think of workhorse back there, because usually they had somebody to play off, and whether that was Samaje Perine or Chase Brown was there this year, and he got a lot of the work in the passing game. 292 carries in 2021 for Joe Mixon. And it is nice for the Titans having that two-headed monster in the backfield that we'll talk about in a little bit with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, that neither one of those guys should approach 300 carries. You can split that up, and you can still get the same effect out of your running game, even though it's not coming from specifically one guy.
Yeah. And, the other thing with that is you're going to see a lot of 11 personnel, all right, and that tends to be almost the base offense for most teams anyway, but I'm curious how they're going to work these tight ends, right, because you have a couple pretty good ones in Wiley and Chig, Okonkwo. I think you're going to see 11 and also 4 receiver sets. You know what I mean? I think you're going to see two running backs in the backfield. We started to see more of that last year with Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry. I think you're also going to see those guys, Spears and Pollard, involved in the passing game, and saw some things that really laid evidence to that.
I'm just excited that we aren't going to see so much one receiver out there in in a 22 set, and your one receiver was Cody Hollister. I think I mentioned that earlier this week, but I just remember
he had a 30-yard catch in one of those.
He did, and I know, because every time he would trot out there as the only wide receiver, I would say to my friends, this was back in college, I'd say, man, they're running the football here. Like, Cody Hollister is just blatant, like blinking light. We are running. We are
I'm
running.
blocking you.
And right as I said that, play action, Cody Hollister caught it for 30 yards. And I was like, all right, I'll shut up now. I did want to get into the Titans don't have a 4,000-yard passer in the Titans era. Warren Moon did it back in the day, but Ryan Tannehill got close a couple times. Looking at Joe Burrow's stats, in the 2 years that he played the full season, so 2021, 2022, he not only surpassed 4,000 yards, he blew it up. 4,600 yards in his second year in the league and nearly 4,500 in his third year. It seems like if the philosophies are similar, I know Brian Callahan wasn't calling plays for those offenses, we should see, as long as Will Levis does take that next step, that he should be close to that 4,000 mark and maybe see that actually happen.
Honestly, I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
That's what I'm thinking looking at these numbers.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't. And not just looking at those numbers, yards-wise, look at the attempts. I guarantee you the attempts are pretty high. So he's going to get opportunities to throw the football. And I think the main thing because you look at Ryan Tannehill. You look at Tannehill, in 2020. I mean, look, they had a 2,000-yard rusher and 16 yards short of two 1,000-yard receivers, right? So
Yep.
they passed the ball, but they didn't do it a whole lot. Like, if you look at Burrow's attempts and compare that to Tannehill's attempts, I guarantee you it's going to be low. And you look at last year even, what did Mike Vrabel say? Like, we're not in a situation where we could get into the drop-back passing game. And everybody went crazy, but they didn't understand what he was saying. Like, they didn't have the offensive line to throw the ball more than 20 to 25 times a game on average and expect that quarterback to make it out alive. You know what I'm saying? So that was the big problem.
And it is a huge contrast when you look at the attempts. Excuse me, actually, it's not as bad, but over 100 more. The year 2020 that Ryan Tannehill threw for 3,800 yards, 481 attempts. Joe Burrow's most attempts came in 2022, 606 attempts. So well over 100 more.
Yeah.
Which, if
that's almost 3 games. That's 3 games.
If Will Levis throws the ball, we'll average those 2 seasons together 560 times. If he doesn't get to 4,000 yards, they shouldn't have been throwing the ball 560 times.
Right,
you would think.
basically. Yeah. And the thing, what I really wonder, because one of the things that was really good about Tannehill, and it's crazy the way he changed when he left Miami, but he was a guy that he's not going to paper cut you. Like, he's going to take the machete out and slice you, like gash you. You know what I mean? And you look at the way he was able to run that play action, turn his back to the defense, flip it back, and know where things are going to be and what's going to be open and throw the football. Like, he was the best in the league play action wise for a couple of years, and the numbers don't deny that. You know what I mean? So they were able to get big plays. Levis last year, he got some pretty big plays. You look at the 4 touchdown game, and there were other games where he chucked that ball downfield. So I think that's going to help factor in too, as far as him being able to be the mad bomber. But like we talked about yesterday, you want to take those shots, but also don't forget what's in front of you and what's presented to you.
I think we were talking about this yesterday, and we mentioned the Dolphins and the Falcons games are 2 games that really stand out when you look at Will Levis's rookie year. Another one that I think the one that kind of sold me on Will Levis as, okay, this could be the guy, it was that Steelers game 4 days after his debut. Like, they lost that game, and he threw a couple of picks, but there were so many throws in that game where I was like, Ryan Tannehill wasn't doing that. Marcus Mariota wasn't doing that. If you can mold this guy, he's got all the arm talent to make. I mean, some of those plays in the Steelers game, no one talks about them, but they were just as good as the Falcons and Dolphins games.
I say it over and over again, man. There was a throw. It's the 4th quarter. They're down. And let me tell you something. Heinz Field or Acrisure Park, whatever it's called now.
Acrisure Stadium, I think.
Acrisure Stadium. 4th quarter, defense is on the field
in a primetime
key
game.
Moment in a primetime game. That screen goes black, and you start seeing this, but the towels are yellow, not white.
Yeah.
That Renegade comes on. Let me tell you something. I get goosebumps now just thinking about it. And I was just sitting in the box. Like, I went on the field. They played that music. The Titans are in the huddle. Levis came out, looked over, got the ball, strike to Traylon Burks.
Yep.
It was like a 12, 13-yard, beautifully placed numbers to sideline throw, everybody was like,
Oh.
those
they're
fans were quiet.
they're not used to a rookie quarterback coming in and doing that. Even I was at the game in Pittsburgh. I think it was 2018. It was Thursday Night Football again. Titans came in 7-3, and that was the game. Marcus Mariota threw 4 interceptions, and he did open the second half with a deep ball to Rashard Matthews. That it was freezing. My dad wanted to leave, and I was like, we can't leave now. Then he threw 2 more picks, and the game was over.
Time to go.
Antonio Brown had 3 touchdowns in that game. But it shows you it's not easy in a primetime atmosphere, fourth quarter, to go in and beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Will Levis got about as close as you possibly could. He threw that pick in the end zone on the last play of the game. Another play from that stands out to me, they were backed up. I think it was second quarter. It was like 2nd and 20, and he just threw a dart to DeAndre Hopkins over the middle, move the chains, move along.
That trust he had in Hopkins was so beautiful to see.
Just like that, too.
Yeah.
Second start, 4 days after his debut. A lot to like about Will Levis's development early on, and what we could see in this Brian Callahan offense. We're going to keep talking about that on the other side. We're going to start with the running backs. I know everybody's talked about Pollard and Spears, and it seemed like a little bit of a move that didn't make a ton of sense right when it happened, because they're like, oh, we kind of already have Tony Pollard at home and Tajay Spears. But they can still play off each other, and we're going to talk with TD about how that is going to look in 2024. Again, if you want to get in on the conversation, 615-737-1025. Text or call. And again, we have our TD Power Hour coming up from 4 to 5. If you have any questions for TD, please send those in, and we'll get to those coming up in the second hour of the program. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman on this Thursday afternoon, live from the Hermitage Golf Course and the 615 Open. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
First of all, let me say this about that. It's about touches. Okay. That's the one thing I'm so excited about. A lot of times when you see systems like this, you got a guy that's a first and second down guy, and then he may not be able to catch the ball as well, right? So the way I look at it is I look at it and say, okay, you got five catches, you got 6 catches, but you got only, 8, carries. Well, I add all those together, right? And then you get double-digit touches. In terms of the high hand, I'm a big believer, right? We're going to need them all. And you get into a game, and they know. Guys know. Like Coach, I've coached Adrian Peterson and Alfred Morris and guys like that, and all of a sudden the guy gets a hot hand, and then that other back is like, hey, Coach, leave him in there, Coach. He's rolling. And, it's a game-by-game situation, but I feel like, we have two legit guys that can really help our team on first, second, and third down.
That was Titans running back coach Randy Jordan talking about his dynamic duo in the backfield, Tyjae Spears, Tony Pollard, getting ready to kind of shoulder the load together in the backfield for the Titans this year. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport with you. Stillman and company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Again, we are live out here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. We've seen some of our local celebrities roll through here already. Chase McCabe just came by a few minutes ago. TD, hearing from Randy Jordan there, talking about those two guys, it really feels like, I know a lot of coaches will say, hey, we don't have a 1 and 2, it's a 1A, 1B, but that really feels like what it is for the Titans, depending on situation, who has the hot hand, the type of play that they want to run, although they can both be used in the passing game. It just feels like both those guys can be used effectively at the exact same time.
Yeah, and literally at the same time. On the field at the same time they could be used. But also, it doesn't make it to – and if you notice what he said to open that up, right? A lot of times you have a guy who's really good on first and second down but not the best pass catcher.
Yes.
He literally described their previous situation.
Yeah.
Right? And how I could so many times watching them, and it would be second down, and then as soon as they had the result, Coach turn and Tony Dews or James Otten last year, was like, okay, get in there, because they have to shift personnel.
And you have to telegraph what you're doing by doing that.
Telegraphing it. So that versatility is something that they do want to have. But then also, if you look at those two, I think just what they bring to the table, and I had mentioned a tandem that it kind of reminds me of. They're a bigger version of this tandem. But I remember back in, it was post-Ricky Waters days, so we're talking like 96 around there. Charlie Garner and Vaughn Hebron. This was a tandem. Now, neither one of them weighed 200 pounds, but they both were explosive runners that even though they weren't big, they ran behind their pads, and Charlie Garner was a guy that you could throw the ball to, and he'll catch it, and he'll run an awful long time.
Yep.
And it was one of those situations where, Ray Rose, Andy Reid, Ray Rose it was. They didn't have to worry about who's in the game. They could just call the offense. And obviously Ray Rose wasn't the offensive play caller, but it was that era. And that's what I see with this tandem is that you could run the offense, but then also these are guys that you could move around in different places and create matchups against linebackers that would, in a lot of cases, be favorable for them with Tyjae Spears and Pollard.
And you mentioned the previous running back, Derrick Henry, obviously. He was great in first and second down situations, and you could use him in the screen game. We saw so many explosive plays in the screen game with Derrick Henry. But it was third down. If it was third down and more than 3, and even sometimes within there, they would take him off the field. And you're telegraphing, all right, we're not running it here. And with Spears and Pollard, you don't have to do that anymore because while their skill sets aren't identical, they're very similar. They can both do a lot of things for this team. And I think using them together is going to put a lot of pressure on defenses because you just never know if let's say they just run out there, no tight ends, you got 2 backs in the backfield, and then you have Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd. Those are 5 weapons that all could end up being the primary option for Will Levis and can make a play.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. And I think you will see I know a lot of them, they call it the pony package,
Yeah.
right? The two running backs there with no tight end. You could see a lot of that. And I think when you look at this, I love what he said about the touches, right? Because so many times when you're looking at running backs, you're like, oh, well, he only had, 10 carries.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, he had 7 catches, too. That's almost 20 touches, and look what he did with it.
Yeah.
100-plus yards. That's good. And I think the fact that he's looking at it that way, and I love how he name drop. Oh yeah, Adrian Peterson, Alfred Morris. He just name drops some guys like that. But I love that approach. Being able to make sure guys get their touches, because whether it's a handoff or it's a dump pass or it's a Texas route, you're getting the ball in his hands to give him an opportunity to make a play.
And it's going to look very different because we are used to looking at box scores after Titans games, and it's, all right, Derrick Henry, 23 carries. Derrick Henry, 25 carries. It might look like, hey, week 1 against the Bears, maybe Tajay Spears gets 12 carries, but Tony Pollard only gets 3, but he catches the ball 7 times or whatever it is. I think it's going to be very different, and it's going to take some adjusting to, because the Titans have been the home of workhorse running backs for so long. I saw a graphic. I hate to say it because I think it was Dov Kleiman or whatever that aggregation account is, but he posted a graphic of most 1,000-yard rushers in the last 15 years, and the Titans had 10,000-yard rushing seasons, which was more than anybody. But it makes sense when you look back, Chris Johnson and DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. Maybe these guys aren't both 1,000-yard rushers like Tajay Spears said he hopes they are, but I think both of them having 1,000 all-purpose yards from scrimmage, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and the other thing you got to look at, right, when you talk about Henry, and by the way, there's 2,000-yard rushers.
Yeah, all in the last 20 years.
No other franchise has that. But
no, they don't.
What you have to look at here is just the way these guys have been able to, work things as far as having that primary back. Because outside of that year, well, the 1 year where Henry got hurt, right?
Yes. And you had to have Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard.
Deontay Foreman had 100-plus carries.
Yeah.
Now, if you take that out, the only time Henry was available for the full year as a starter that a guy had 100 or more carries was last year with Tajay Spears.
Wow.
But then you also have to look at, the precedent that has been set with Brian Callahan in this offense, right? Because you go back to 2019 when they got in there, Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard. We're talking about offensive snaps. Joe Mixon was at 60% snaps, 629. Gio Bernard, and we know Bernard, a really good third down specialist and pass catcher in his own right, 39% at 419 snaps. And then you kind of shift around and you look, oh, wait a minute, you know what? Even without Gio Bernard there, you go to 2022, Joe Mixon, 65% snaps, 601. Now, granted, Mixon was grounded for three games. He had an injury. But then you got Samaje Perine, 420 snaps, 39.9. You know what I mean? And it's funny. I remember talking to Tajay at the Senior Bowl, right? And this was Callahan obviously had the job by then. But I remember because he was down there to support his homie, Jaquan Jackson. And I remember he texted me. He was like, turn around. And I turned around, and he was in the stands. So I went over, and we were talking. And he was like, what do you think of Callahan? I was like, you're going to like him. And I said, go back and watch the game, the AFC Championship game where they beat the Chiefs. Watch that play calling, that sequence up until halftime. And one of the things that he did, like he was mixing them in and out, but it was a beautifully timed screen pass to Samaje Perine. It ended up going like 40-something yards for a touchdown. And that changed the course of that game, going into halftime with a touchdown, shortening the lead.
I think that was the halftime show where you couldn't hear anything too in Arrowhead, where they had the speaker right behind the desk or something like that.
That's a mess.
No, I think you're right that we are going to see these guys both out there being used different ways, and it is great to be able to look back at the Bengals and see, Joe Mixon, he was more of the workhorse guy, but they were able to use Perine 40% of snaps. That's much higher than I would have anticipated for him.
Yeah, and it's jaded a bit because there were 3 games that your boy didn't play, that Mixon didn't play. But still, you look at that, and the other thing that you have to remember, and like Callahan, like most coaches, Callahan, he's a thief. You know what I mean? And I wanted to ask him, and I'm going to when we get back to camp. I'm curious if he's watched any of those off. Like I know he has. I'm curious what offenses he's watched in which they had those dual threat. Guys that they were using at the same time. Because you look at the Eagles back with there were times, man, they had LeGarrette Blount and Darren Sproles on the field at the same
Yeah.
time. And it's like that movie Twins, right? You got Arnold and Danny DeVito, but those guys were out there working together and getting it in, man.
Lendell White, Chris Johnson, smash and dash.
Smash and dash.
We'll see.
Well, TNT right now, right?
There we go.
Tony,
is that what
Tony
we're
and
going with?
Tajay. That's what I would call it.
They definitely do need a nickname. TNT's a good one. That is good. 615-737-1025. We'll keep talking about the running backs coming up. We'll also dip into the tight ends a little bit. Titans notably were not very active in the tight end market, free agency, and the draft. Have to feel good about Chig and Wiley. We'll talk about how they might be used in this Brian Callahan offense as well. Again, 615-737-1025. If you want to get involved, text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport out here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. Joe Dubin just rolled by and nearly took down our tent with a golf cart. He's still out here somewhere. We'll have to keep our head on a swivel. Again, Jared on vacation. Stillman and company. We'll be right back here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Join 1025 The Game and Robbie Stanley this Saturday from 10 to noon at the Coleman Tractor Company at 3613 Highway 31 West in White House for the Orange Days sales event. There will be free lunch from 11 to 1, catered by Tesha's, live music, driver ride demos, door prizes, and you can enter to win an Echo battery-powered weed trimmer kit. Plus, check out all the one-day deals, including 10% off on all parts department purchases. Event runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday at the Coleman Tractor Company, 3613 Highway 31 West in White House. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport with you here on Stillman and Company. Again, Jared on vacation all week. We are out at the Hermitage Golf Course, 615 Open. Great event out here. It's been a fun day. All our shows out here today. Do want to mention tomorrow, 2 to 6, Chase and Big Joe will be out at the Live Golf Tournament, filling in for Jared then. So make sure you tune in there. And we'll have a special Force Company, our Saturday show, 9 to 12 as well. So
that's a dope show, by the way.
It's been a lot of fun.
When I remember to catch it, I do. You know, even though it bumped talking with TD playing on Saturdays out of the way, but I still, get some support.
Yeah, tune in 9 to 12 tomorrow, 9 to 11 on Saturday. I'm talking on the radio every single day this week.
Hey,
it seems. So
never stop recording.
Again, Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport with you out here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open. Continuing our conversation talking about the running backs for the Titans and how they might be used. Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. For our fantasy managers out there, TD, I know for years Derrick Henry has been towards the top of fantasy drafts because he's going to get the rock a lot. With these two guys, do you feel like maybe we're still going to see that statistical excellence from them, or do you think that they're going to take away each other's, steal some thunder there and make them a little less viable when it comes to fantasy owners?
I think they're going to steal some thunder, but my thing, what I can't wait to discover, and it's going to take a couple games before you see, but who is going to be the short yardage guy, the goal line guy, the goal to goal, who's going to be there? I asked in that clip that we played to begin our last segment, I asked Randy Jordan about, going with the hot hand and how you balance that, and you heard his answer. It's interesting because, a lot of times, like I remember 2016, Doug Peterson, with Frank Reich, they had Ryan Matthews and Kenjon Barner.
Yes.
These were a couple runners that, they were streaky runners, you know what I mean? And sometimes Kenjon would get in and they'll rip one, and then they'd be like, yeah, we're just going to leave him. They go with the hot hand.
Yeah.
And it's something that, the Titans did for a bit with Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry.
That is true. Yep.
I think when you look at that, just having that feel for the game, and being able to feel when a guy's getting in his groove, if you have, and that's why I think the relationship is so important when you look at Pollard and Spears.
Yeah.
If they have a thorough relationship the way that they do, to where they generally want to see each other do good, you don't have that guy on the sidelines seething.
No jealousy
like a wolf,
or anything like that.
Get me in. Hey, listen, he's hot. Go with him. And that's the thing that's really good about that tandem.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point about the goal line back, because you look at these two guys. Tony Pollard's had a few years on his own now, but he was kind of the change of pace to Ezekiel Elliott, who was more of your power guy, goal line. And same with Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry. I am interested to see which one of those guys is in those short yardage situations, or maybe they can use both of them, and that way, again, like we talked about telegraphing, that way you're not telegraphing which way you're going to go with it.
And listen, don't forget about, Julius Chestnut. Now, he came to camp, mini camp and OTAs and everything. He looks a little bit leaner. I want to talk to him about that, because I'm like, man, you're not out there looking like Natron Means anymore. You know what I mean? I told him he looked like Natron Means. He was cracking up, respecting him for knowing the guys that came before him. But you got him and you got Hassan Haskins, who's a big bat.
Yeah,
so
that's another
wonder,
guy.
How they would be in the mix.
Hassan Haskins is somebody that has fallen out of the picture, it feels like, because he did miss all of last year, and nobody's really been talking about him. But people forget this dude, he was really good at Michigan. He was a fourth-round pick, I believe. So a guy with plenty of talent, maybe he slots in as that number 3 guy, and he would be a perfect guy to be that power goal line back to mix in with those two guys.
Yeah, and he could catch the football. He could catch
that
the
is
ball.
True.
Like he was working a lot of third downs, in his rookie year. So, that is something to look at. I'm looking forward. There's so many things. That's the exciting part about this offense, right?
Yeah.
Even this team, period. There's so many different things that you're like, okay, I wonder how they're going to use those guys. Oh, I wonder how they're going to use the tight end tandem. I wonder who's going to be, the number 1 receiver getting all of the targets. I wonder how will like I wonder what
We
the
don't know
offensive line
anything.
is going to do.
Yeah.
There's so much, so you can't help but smile and be excited about it. And I'm Bart Scott right now, man. Can't wait.
There's a difference between not knowing in a bad way and in a good way, and it feels like with a lot of the Titans in general, it's not knowing in a good way because you feel good about the options that they have. You just don't know how it's all going to sort out. You feel good about we make the groceries reference yesterday with the salary cap. You feel good about all the ingredients. You're just not sure how much of what is going to be used in each.
Yeah.
And you talked about the tight ends too. I think that's another thing that Titans fans are wondering about is, Chig had a promising rookie season, struggled last year with some drops. Although he came on a little bit towards the end of the year, which I think people forget about. He started to figure it out a little bit more, as did Josh Wiley at times. It seems like with the way that they haven't really addressed that position, that Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon do feel good that those two guys, maybe it's not 1 and 2, but maybe the combination of those two guys can be productive for this team.
Yeah, for sure. And my thing is this. You talk about Chig and how he progressed. I remember talking to him, and he was really in his own head, And I remember talking to him, and I'm like, yo, man, I see you on the jugs machine after every practice.
Yeah.
Your confidence comes from that work. And I remember telling him also he needed to get in touch with Vernon Davis, because I told him about I remember when Vernon Davis first came to the league, the dude couldn't catch. Everything, and I noticed Chig doing some of the same things that Vernon was doing, jumping up and catching the pass that you don't have to. When you jump and catch the pass, also with your body, you're telling me, hey, look, I got no confidence in my catching ability. You know what I mean? And that's where he was mind-wise. I bet you, I guarantee, because I've been there and done that, I guarantee you what he was thinking was, I can't drop this. You know what I mean? As opposed to, let me just go ahead and snap this out the air. You know what I mean? And do what I got to do. That is a good sign how he ended the year. Now you just got to hope that he could come in and pick up off of that he was doing. And you look at Wiley, the way he's starting to come out of the shell. I think you have both of these guys. Wiley, actually, that one of Levis's touchdowns during minicamp, was a seam route to Wiley. And he caught that thing and, he was gone. So I think he's going to be involved, and that big body that he has, that could be a red zone option. He could be a guy you're throwing those alley-oops to in the corner of the end zone, telling him to go get it. There are a lot of things that I think they'll be able to do. And then also we talk about precedents with the running backs. You look at, Drew Sample, C.J. Uzoma, and even going back to Hayden Hurst, they have used multiple tight ends. Not a lot at the same time, but guys have gotten snaps.
Yeah, the Bengals, you can't really think of, in the last few years, a dominant tight end. Like Uzoma had that 1 year when they went to the Super Bowl. He had a really good year that year and turned that into a contract with the Jets.
Yeah.
But you can't really think of, there's no George Kittle or Mark Andrews that's been in that Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan offense. Yeah. With Chig and his struggles last year, I hate it because it started with that Vikings preseason game. It wasn't a regular season game when his struggle started. He had that game where he dropped his first 2 passes that he saw in live action, and you have to assume that got into his head a little bit because they kept him in there. They got him some easy touches after that, but still, the first 2 times you're seeing live action your second season, you drop the ball. That sticks with you as a young player, I'm sure.
Yeah. Did you see Tom Brady? I forget what show he was on, but I want to say it was Colin Cowherd. How dare I quote something from him? But I'm pretty sure it was that show. But I remember they were talking about the importance of getting guys touches early.
I did see that clip.
And the how relevant that is to establishing confidence. One of the things that Brady said is, tight ends and slot guys, there's easy ways we can make sure they get the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like quick catch and throw to them. That's something that you want to do with a guy like Chig, who is kind of at one point was in his head about the pass catching ability. You also wanted to, and that was my big issue. If you remember last year, I asked all the time, Tim Kelly, I asked him all the time, how are you getting Burks involved early? You know what I mean? Because he's another one of those players I feel like you got to get involved early, and it didn't happen.
Now, that was a great clip from Tom Brady, if you haven't seen it. Brady talking about how he used the 49ers as an example. You have Christian McCaffrey. You have Deebo Samuel. You can't have those guys go a quarter and a half without seeing the ball. They're going to start to get discouraged and maybe their mind's not completely in it. But if you get them first, second touch, that's when those guys are most effective.
It's just something about like getting in the feel of the game, and you just see like a different like bounce and walk. You know, when you're getting involved early, you see that from the guys. Like there's a different aura, a vibe. You know, and I think it's just necessary to do.
I think everybody can kind of relate to that when you're doing something on that level, especially for these NFL players. Like, I know I played high school baseball. My first at bat, I would go up there and I'd be nervous, I'd be tight. But you get that first one, you run out to first base, and then after that, it's all gone. You're into it, you're good, and it does make sense that a guy like Traylon Burks, who you need that confidence, just get the ball in his hands. He sees it, he makes a play. It could be a 4-yard gain. It doesn't matter. That could lead to more down the road.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's something the Titans should be looking to do, and I think Brian Callahan knows that, is that, hey, you got to get your playmakers the ball. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up next. Again, coming up, 4 o'clock hour, Jared may not be here, but we've got TD for 3 hours, so this is our TD Power Hour. We want to hear from you. Text or call 615-737-1025. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. If you have a question for TD, let us know. We'll talk about that coming up next, second hour of Stillman and Company, live from the Hermitage Golf Course in the 615 Open, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, hour number 2 here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Jared Stillman on vacation this week. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for him. It is time for the TD Power Hour here on Stillman and Company.
Yes.
Brought to you by Jared Company's Fire and Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division. Call 615-515-1270 or visit jaredcompaniesinc.com. Again, TD Power Hour. We've been talking Titans in the first hour. We'll keep doing it. Or if you have any random questions for TD, fire away. Our text
We could
line.
talk Mets.
Yeah,
We could talk,
Grimace.
Grimace. The streak ended
The streak
yesterday.
ended. I saw that.
Ended yesterday.
Tough, but streaks are meant to be broken.
That's
they need
right.
to get Grimace back
Start
out
a new
there. Have him come out to Tommy Trumpets or something.
There you go. There you go.
Again, 615-737-1025 if you want to text or call with a question for TD. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We're talking in the break there, TD. DeAndre Hopkins. Anytime a highlight video is posted of what he did this past year, he finds it. He lets you know on Twitter. He had a funny tweet today with they said no one wanted me. In Ran we trust. We were joking how Brown put out his tweets and they'd be deleted within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, he is himself. He is out there on social media and he's going to let you know.
Yeah, he's gonna let you know, and you're gonna know where his thoughts are. He's funny. Like I said yesterday, man, I was one of the coolest dudes, man. And it's funny because, you think of the calmness that he has, and it's really a lot of times people that are really calm like that, they earn that calm because of the stuff that they've been through. And you could look at his story. He's had his share of adversity. So it's pretty cool, like, just kind of thinking about that and thinking, like, man, he's so calm, but he's so daggone petty, man. I'll be cracking it up. Hey, Petty Murphy, man, that's DeAndre Hopkins.
I mean, for being one of the most talented receivers and productive receivers of the last decade in the NFL, that dude still finds a way to put a chip on his shoulder, which is, you got to do it. You got to keep that motivation out there.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, texter on our text line, a question. Ridley takes wide receiver 1 right is the question. I wouldn't be so sure about that, but, I think does it matter is really more the question. Ridley and Hopkins, I think, are both going to get theirs, and it might be game to game. It might be series to series. Who's involved more?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 1 and 1A, that type of situation. And Boyd's going to get his share of targets. You look at what he does really well, work the middle of the field, and just the reliability where it's like, okay, I know if the safety's coming down, I know he's going to, in the linebackers, I know he's going to settle in that window right there, and he's not going to drift if I throw the ball where we're going to be on the same page, in other words. Like, I know he's going to be – that's something that's going to get Boyd a lot of targets, that trust. That trust is going to get in. But I think when you look at those guys together, the thing I like about this a lot as far as not having that true dominant number one is it's a lot like when the Eagles play. And the Eagles, that's the height of my coverage career.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That 2016 and 17 years. So I'm going to reference that. And growing up in Philly, I'm going to reference the Eagles. So I apologize for the constant references. But you look at that year they played the Patriots. I remember doing Radio Row and walking through, and everybody's like, all the shows I was doing, who's going to win? I said, man, the Eagles going to win this. And they're like, what are you talking about? Why? I said, well, they have a lot of really good options, but not one that you just say, I'm taking that away.
Yeah.
And that's what you have with this Titans team.
Those are the dangerous teams.
Those are the dangerous ones. I think that's what's good about this receiver group is like, okay, you want to focus on the outside, taking Ridley away? Well, guess what? You could go ahead and get busy, Tyler Boyd. You want to focus on that? Okay, Ridley out there, Hopkins, y'all get busy, and I think that's a really good thing to have. Again,
TD Power Hour here, 4 to 5. If you have questions for Teron Davenport, text or call 615-737-1025. Joel on our text line, he's going to reference Jared here. Jared is always complaining about the Titans not having a right tackle. Should I tell the right tackle story?
Yeah, please.
What does TD think of the right tackle position with NPF and John Ojukwu, who we saw taking a lot of the top reps at OTAs, and how things overall will shake out on that right side of the line?
Yeah, I think Jalen Duncan, you put him in that mix too. Look, Jared is right to question it. He's right to question it. I wouldn't do it to the degree that he's doing, to where you just outright say they don't have one. They believe they have one. And I think this is one of those things where you look at Bill Callahan and his track record, I think it points to them being able to, or even fans just being able to say, okay, you know what? Let's go with what he's saying. He has seen Petit Ferrer's tape. Hasn't really seen him on the field because he hadn't been out on the field. He's seen Jalen Duncan. He's seen John Ojukwu. They feel between those three, they have something. Now, you always have the option. You know, we talked yesterday about flipping if Traylon Burks, you know, is able to be flipped for. You always have that option. Or even sometimes guys get caught in numbers games and they get cut and you bring them in. I think the right tackle situation is a big-time question mark. In my opinion, that's the biggest question mark on the offense.
It's probably the only spot on the offense where you don't really see the solution immediately. Mm-hmm. Like, you can squint and see, okay, I could see NPF being there. I could see John Ojukwu. I could see one of those guys. I mean, maybe even Dylan Radins. I know they've said that they're going to play him at guard, but he's had success at tackle at times. But you have to feel a lot better about the offensive line as a whole. That's more of a unit than an individual position. Yeah. And when you have upgrades at 4 out of the 5 spots, that elevates the whole line. Yes, you don't want a turnstile at right tackle, but I think as long as you have a guy who you feel comfortable with out there, the whole unit is going to be better.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the thing is, and this is something I always tell Jared about, because, you know, he complains about Skoronski being drafted 11th as a guard.
Yeah.
Or was it 7th? 11th. Yeah, 11th. And what I try to listen, man, like, trends happen. The league goes through circles and cycles. And right now, there's a premium on collapsing the pocket from the interior.
Yes.
And there's a premium on protecting the pocket from the interior. That guard, center guard triangle is really important.
Look at what these DTs are getting paid.
Bingo. Look at what the guards got paid.
Which they have to.
They have to. And I think when you look at that, right, you talk about the right tackle position. As long as you're able to get back in your set, in some cases just club him and run him out of the play, Levis could step up.
Yep.
And that pocket, because you got Cushionberry, that's why Cushionberry signing is so important. Because you got Cushionberry who's going to hold things down at that center position and give Levis that comfort level to be able to step up and have that space to do it. So you could just watch. You don't have to, you know, hands and throw them in. If you do, great. You took them out to play.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just use your momentum and continue to take them. Now, there's going to be times where, as J.C. Latham mentioned, he overset outside a little bit, and the guy gave him this, and made the move inside and did it. But, you know, for the most part, you could go by. Just let him run himself out the play.
And Peter Skoronski at 11, I understand what Jared is saying, that there are premium positions in the league, and pass rusher, tackle, quarterback, wide receiver, and those are usually the top 15 picks, most of them. Mm-hmm. But Peter Skoronski, based on all accounts heading into that draft, everybody said that is the most surefire lock pick that you could have, which there's never such thing as a surefire pick in the NFL draft. But you can't feel bad about taking a guy like that everyone is saying is a future Hall of Famer, 10-time Pro Bowler. Like, yeah, maybe a little high for a guy who's going to play guard, but if you're getting a 10-year starter at left guard, do you feel that bad about it?
And then you have to look at the way it helps out other things, right? You want a downfield passing game, you better have that pocket. Don't want to follow through with his throw without banging his hand on the center's helmet or the guard's helmet. Now, if you got to look at last year, Aaron Brewer and Brew, you good people, but there were a lot of times where Brew got pushed back and, you know, there was an issue, you know, so that's not going to be the case this year. And that's why you want to have that guard, center, guard triangle so secure.
And the Titans hope that they found an upgrade at all 3 of those spots. If it is Sadiq Charles at right guard, then you brought in Peter Skoronski obviously was here last year, but you're hoping that he takes a big step without the appendectomy and all that stuff that went on in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Again, it's our TD Power Hour. You can chime in, 615-737-1025. We want to hear from you. What do you want to know from Teron Davenport as he's with us all afternoon long? Stillman and Company with Jared on vacation. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport out at Hermitage Golf Course. We've got some people wanting to know about Tavondre Sweat. We talked a little about the Trevor Lawrence contract yesterday, but we might get into that as well and much more. And if you have a question, again, chime in 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063, The Game. Join us this July 4th at the 18th Annual Music City Hot Chicken Festival at East Park. It is a spectacular day packed with live music contests and, of course, hot chicken. It's free, so bring the whole family. You can discover more at hotchickenfestival.com. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman today. Live out here at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. Stillman and Company here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. It's our TD Power Hour. We're hearing from you, the audience. What do you want to know from Teron Davenport? Talked a little bit about the offensive line in our last segment. Now we're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. TD, a texter, wants to know, is there any indication about whether T'Vondre Sweat will be ready or not ready for training camp when it rolls along around in late July?
All indications are that he will be ready. And you look at what Brian Callahan said when he was asked about that. He's standing strong to it's a short-term situation he's dealing with. Now, J.C. Latham had mentioned that he called him. He was like, hey, no need to rush back so it gets worse, et cetera, et cetera. So, and rehab. So that tells you, okay, it's some type of injury or something along those lines. I think it is likely that he will be back and be ready. And obviously there's been some missed time, but I believe that he wants to hit that ground running. And I know there were a lot of things that were said about him as far as like being a party guy and, naturally because he's 360 pounds, people say he's lazy, this, that, and third. I watched him at the Senior Bowl for a week, and, he worked. And then also you look at just, even coming off of the draft, he and some of the other picks from Texas, they all work together. And he had mentioned how, what he's out to do is prove himself right, vindicate his name. So I think if a guy is talking about that and believes that, I would like to think that he will be ready when need be.
And I think you're right. I think the off-the-field stuff has been a little overblown with him. I know that there was talk about him being kind of a goofball personality, and that maybe that gets taken the wrong way, that he's not taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It feels like he takes football very seriously. He had the issue in the offseason that the Titans flew down to Texas, talked with his family, and sorted all of it out. They did their due diligence. I think the injury concerns are legitimate, but let's give him training camp and let's see. I think the red flags maybe start waving if, hey, he comes back and then misses time again, and that's when it starts to be, okay, is this guy injury prone, or is it just an unfortunate timing that he got an injury after the first day of OTAs?
Yeah, and that's what you have to look at, really.
Need to see him out there for week one in Chicago. I think that will be a big one. Mitch in Bellevue, TD, we said doesn't have to be all Titans questions. Mitch in Bellevue says, TD, when, and I mean when, you get your own national radio show, will you still come on the game for a weekly segment?
Listen, I don't want to go national. Honestly, I want to stay here. I do have a goal. I do eventually want to get on the NFL matchup show. Once Greg Cosell, if he ever does, I want to take over for him. But I want to stay. I've fallen in love with this city.
Yeah,
I could live here. In fact, not to be morbid, but I mean, I'm at the point now where you could bury me here, man. Like, I love Nashville. Like, I love it. So no worries. I'm not going national. I'm staying right now. They talk about some $500,000. We'll think about it.
There's a number for everything.
Yeah.
No need to worry about losing TD. He'll be here for a while, it seems. Caleb on our text line wants to know, we did talk about this a little bit yesterday, the latest at inside linebacker. Caleb says he feels like we have to sign another guy there. We were kind of leaning that the three guys they have are good. There's just not a ton of depth beyond that, beyond Gibbons, Murray, and Gray.
Yeah, listen. Chance Campbell came out. I really liked Chance Campbell.
Yeah,
I liked him coming. I was shocked that he got cut. I was shocked, but he ended up sticking around, and it's been what it's been. But I think Otis Reese is another guy you have to mention. I love Baldy's breakdowns, and he had broken down a couple of plays that Otis Reese has. So I don't know that they need to sign somebody. I think they're okay there. I think between those, they'll have a good three, available to them. And that third one's going to have to play special teams. And I think that's going to be Cedric Gray's way to, really push himself into that eventual starting role and flip-flop, and have Gibbons play special teams.
And we don't talk a lot about seventh-round picks or – seventh-round picks, but James Williams out of Miami, moving from safety to linebacker, a guy who's versatile, maybe kind of Kenneth Murray-esque of, hey, run and hit. Just go light somebody up.
Violent player, man. Really cool dude, too. I got to talk to him a bit after a couple practices, just separate. cool dude. He's another one that got a story, man. Like, a lot of these guys, and that's the thing I love about the league, man, because, like, these guys will be, you get to talk to them, and then you see their story, and it's like it changes the way you feel about them. 'Cause it's like, man,
For
you know
sure.
what? I love the fact that you went through all of this. Here you are, right here. You know what I mean? It's good to see.
Caleb Farley, another guy. We've talked about
Man.
him a lot, but being a Virginia Tech guy, I watched that guy. He highly recruited guy, quarterback, came in as a receiver, tore his
Blew his
ACL
knee.
first day of spring practice, and then comes back playing cornerback for the first time ever in a hostile environment on Labor Day night in Tallahassee. 3 picks. 3 picks in that game. That dude is the definition of resilient, and
Yeah.
that's without mentioning everything that's happened with his
Right,
family. So,
right.
a lot of guys on this Titans team that you're rooting for. Again, if you have any questions for TD, 615-737-1025. Text or call. It's our TD Power Hour here on Stillman and Company. Another texter wants to know about safety. We talked about this yesterday as well. Maybe making an addition there. There's just so many safeties still on the market. You feel like it would make sense. Marcus May got, what, $1.1 million to go take a flyer on one of these guys, even if it's not Justin Simmons.
Yeah, you could do that. Take a flyer on one of the guys. And I think, the big thing is the availability. Yeah, Amani Hooker, and I was just talking to my editor about this because I told him I wanted to do a story. Hooker and Elijah Molden, they haven't gone through a year without injury. And it's just like,
those are guys who they've been mainstays on the injury report. Whether they play or not, it's usually limited practice.
these are
DNP.
your top 2 guys.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
The two positions this offseason, maybe 3 that stand out that they did really nothing with: safety, inside linebacker, and tight end, where there are guys you feel good about in those spots, but, man, if you could have just added one more piece, I think you'd feel a lot better about it.
Yeah. David Martin Robinson, undrafted free agent tight end. Keep an eye on him. He wears number 88 out of Temple. He was a single-digit guy, so you already know he was the truth. But keep an eye on him. Watch him during the camp and preseason. I think he's going to do some things.
Speaking about undrafted free agents, we touched on Gabe Judy-Lawley, but just what kind of impact could he have, whether it's special teams or maybe being that 5th cornerback? And I was wondering yesterday, and we never got to it, what is it about corner that these undrafted guys seem to always stick? Like, I feel like it's rare, outside of maybe running back, to see undrafted guys consistently make the roster, but it feels like every year there's a new undrafted corner who's on the Titans 53 to start the season.
So many of them.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. But I think a lot of it also is scheme. And I didn't even mention this yesterday, but I was going back and looking at, some of my videos with Gabe Judy, and he talked about how he didn't really have the opportunity to use his length and ability to get his hands on guys at the line to his advantage in the past. So it goes back to, like we talked about with Kenneth Murray, right? You got to use a guy to his abilities, and he's a perfect match. I mean, that's a great job by whoever that that staff in identifying a guy with traits that match what you want to do. And I think they did that, and that's why you see him playing up. Look, we gotta get the pads on. You know what I mean? So we see what he really brings. But so far, it looks good.
Really feels like he fits that scheme that Denard Wilson wants to run, and the press and L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie type guys. Gabe Judy-Lawley looking like he's at least got a chance to make the roster this year as an undrafted free agent, and one of those guys we're excited to see in training camp. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Text or call again. Right now, Stillman & Company out here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open. We're doing a TD Power Hour. Usually, Tehran is on Thursdays with Jared. We figured since we got TD for the whole show, let's give you an hour. What do you want to hear from TD? And we've got people chiming in on our text line as we speak. If you want to chime in again, 615-737-1025, text or call, and we will get to your question. Jake Lyman, Tehran Davenport, in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman Company, 1025-1063, the game. Stillman and Company live out here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman today. Tennessee pimping again, TD.
That's it, man. That's what we're doing. Tennessee pimping the airwaves. You know what I'm saying? That's my guy, man, MCD. Yo, that store, that video, he filmed that outside of Nissan Stadium. Go
Really?
check it out. Yeah,
You know what? I
MCD,
think I've seen that video.
Tennessee pimping. Check it out on YouTube. You know, give him some love, man. Give him some love. Local artists.
Check it out. Yeah, you said he won a competition last week.
Yeah, he won a competition. There was a judge here from Atlanta, and he was like, you know, after his second performance, he turned to the crowd and he was like, "Yo, get behind this guy, man. Like, this could be your T.I."
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
he's
talented, man. He's talented. He dropped 3 anthems. Like, I was in there bobbing, like, yeah, let's go, man, let's go.
It's an anthem for the city. We were saying yesterday we need to get the Titans in-game people to get that involved.
Yes.
Tennessee pimping the 615. Again, we're doing our TD Power Hour here. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport out at Hermitage Golf Course. And we are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We want to hear from you. Text or call 615-737-1025 with questions for TD. We do have Brad on the line wanting to ask TD a question about the Edge. Brad, what you got for Teron today?
Hey, guys. I'm just wondering what do you think about our Edge depth rotation overall? So if 10 was supremely confident and 0 was no faith at all, how do you feel the Titans rank versus the rest of the NFL? And the second question is, if you're not real sure about their depth, who is still on the market right now that you would go pursue on the Edge? And I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's a great couple questions. I would say about a 6, leaning a little bit to a 6 and a possible. You know, you play spades, you know what I'm talking about. I would say that, and the thing, we talked about this yesterday, Jake. You know, when you look at this group, Harold Landry is a darn good pass rusher.
Yeah.
But they don't have that guy where you're like, man, if we don't watch out for him,
Yeah.
he gonna wreck our Sunday.
Opposing OCs aren't sliding their protections to Harold Landry every single time.
And that's the thing when you're talking about guys on the outside. Now, one thing that is good and why Tavondre Sweat, I think, is so valuable, you put him there, there are going to be times where you're going to have to double team, but you put him there in the middle, you could take Jeffrey Simmons, because I think it was like 3 of his sacks last year came from the edge, you know, the defensive end position. So you do have that flexibility with Simmons. I still think, you know, Arden Key, he has to be able to finish and close the deal better. And I'm wondering, going to that pass rush summit with Von Miller and those guys, and I forget the guy, Brandon Jordan, I want to say the position coach. Like, they're working together. Hopefully, for his sake, he could pull something from there and be able to close better. But, you know, to keep us on track here, the depth isn't really there. It's unproven, right? I don't know what Thomas Rush is going to be. He looked good, you know, on a couple drills, banging the pads, etc. Caleb Murphy, how is he going to continue to progress? Those are guys that kind of bringing it up for the rear. Rashad Weaver, you know, he's saying he's more explosive. We'll see. But if there were a guy out there, I would Carl Lawson, man. Like, I would sign Carl Lawson because I think that's a low-cost, high-reward type of situation. Now, is he going to get you 10 sacks, 15 sacks? No. But I think he could get you a good 7 or 8 and set that edge for you and help out your run defense.
And you talked about it, TD, about how the Titans on the defensive front have conditional depth. If Tavondre Sweat is out there and is consistently on the field, man, does that open things up for everybody else on that line.
Yeah.
But if he can't be out there, which I guess it remains to be seen, that's when you might start to see the thin edge and defensive line come to rear its ugly head.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, doing our TD Power Hour. Thanks, Brad, for the question there. Chris in Lewisburg on our text line wants to know about Traylon Burks, and I'll package 2 here, 2 Burks questions together. Chris wants to know, will Traylon Burks be on the roster this year? And another texter wants to know, will we be seeing Burks as a gunner this year? And I think those 2 questions kind of go together. If Burks isn't a gunner, then maybe he isn't on the team.
Yeah. Hey, listen, my favorite type of sale, man, buy one, get one free.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way the Titans are looking at Burks, buy one, get one free. You know,
Yep.
you're buying a receiver and you're getting a gunner. And look, man, sometimes I remember freshman and sophomore year, that's what I was a gunner. You know what I mean? Going down there, and I was like, man, I'm not going to get to touch the football freshman year. I'm not going to touch. I'm going down there, and I'm going to bust somebody up. You know what I mean? And that's just the mindset that you have. But then also, you know, in doing that, like, you get confidence and you get that feel, and you end up like, okay, I'm in the flow of the game. Maybe I will get a touch. It turned out I did get a touch and score with that bad boy. So, you know, that's how it works. And I think when you look at Traylon Burks, he's going to be on the roster. I think the only way he's not on the roster is if they flip him for another team.
Trade.
That, you know, like we talked about. Otherwise, he's on the roster. They like him. They see the potential in him. It's just it's not given anymore. Like, everything he gets, as Nick Holes says, everything he gets is going to have to be earned, and that's where it is.
Traylon Burks will have the spotlight on him in training camp, probably more than anyone not named Will Levis in training camp. Maybe you throw J.C. Latham in there, too, as he comes in as the 7th overall pick. But certainly Traylon Burks a lot to prove in training camp. Josh on our text line says, sorry I'm missing a few minutes of the show. Had to check out Tennessee Pimpin'. Thanks for putting me on it, TD.
There you go, there. There you go.
We're spreading the love for Tennessee
Appreciate
Pimpin'.
it, Josh.
Again, our TD Power Hour here on Stillman Company live at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open. Text or call 615-737-1025. Another topic that we touched on yesterday, Matthew in Nashville wants to know what's happening with Brandon Ayuk. He says resign or traded to Pittsburgh. And that's not – we had mentioned maybe Washington because of the ties with Jaden Daniels, but Pittsburgh could be a spot that would make sense for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that would absolutely make sense. You put him out there with George Pickens, you know what I mean? Like, you got something going right there. So, yeah, and they drafted my guy, man, Roman Wilson.
Yeah.
Roman Wilson's nice. But that's a nice trio. So, yeah, I mean, that's something. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'll look into doing that, right? You got Russell Wilson. You want to go ahead and get things done while you got him somewhat, I don't want to say in his prime, but while you got him, like, you know, ready to go. So, that's a good one I could see. And the thing is, I think the Steelers roster is better than Arizona's overall. So I think they're in a better situation to part with that first round pick and bring them in.
The Steelers, there are some teams that just know how to draft positions. The Steelers know how to find mid-round wide receivers. Like, I mean, Antonio Brown is obviously kind of an outlier there. But George Pickens, Mike Wallace a while back. I'm blanking on one. Well, Juju Smith-Schuster was good for a while there, too. Yeah. All these guys, not first-round picks, but ended up being really productive for that Pittsburgh team. Jason in Dover wants to know, and this is a question we kind of got last segment, too, is our O-line as big of a problem as Jared says? We kind of said, no, it's not as big of a deal.
I don't think there is a problem that's as big of a deal as Jared says. You know, I call them the X-Files, man. You're always making up conspiracies and stuff, but no, the O-line isn't as big of a problem. Is there a question mark at left tackle? Yeah, I mean, it's a rookie. You know, he's looked good so far. But again, haven't seen pads on. So that is still a question, but it's a question that's not a huge one. Right tackle is definitely – it's a big one. It's a big one because you don't know, okay, are one of these guys going to be able to emerge? The good thing is you have a guy who has third-round talent. You know what I mean? He was a third-round pick in Nicholas Petit-Frere. I would imagine he has the inside track, and, you know, if they could find a way to get him to be more mean on the football field, you know, Biggie Smalls, he had a song, you know, he talk about he keeps Rottweilers by the door and he feeds them gunpowder so they could devour the criminals trying to drop his decimals. I think that's what they got to do, man, figuratively feed Nicholas Petit-Frere gunpowder so he can get more ferocious out in the football field.
And the offensive line, yes, there are questions at a lot of positions. Like even Lloyd Cushenberry coming over, you feel good about that signing, but you still haven't seen him out there meshing with this unit. But and I hesitate to say this because we said it last year, but can it be worse than last year?
Yeah,
like it can't, right?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Last year was a mess.
Well, that's why I hesitate to say it because after Dennis Daly, we all said, well, Andre Dillard can't be worse, right? And then he was playing in the third quarter of a preseason game against the Patriots, and we were like, oh, well, maybe.
Yeah, nah, no doubt about it.
We do have Kenton on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai. Kenston, excuse me, on the line with a question for T. Kenston, good to hear from you.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
What's up?
Doing good.
What's up, my guy? Our question, man, I don't know, it was a topic of discussion a few days ago. They were talking about Jeff Simmons and his consistency, and I was eager to hear what TD had to say about it because I was kind of in the same boat that, big Jeff Simmons but it seems like his consistency sometimes from game to game isn't there. I know he had injuries, but, he's scheduled to be the highest paid guy on the team this year, and I felt like if he could kind of lead that charge and be that dominant DT, be a top 3, top 5 guy instead of a top 10 guy, and be a little bit more consistent, that he can kind of, where we think Denard Wilson is going to take this defense, if he can kind of be I don't have to compare him to Chris Jones, but just be more consistent. He'll have a 2.5 sack game, and then he'll go a game where they barely say his name. So if he can be more consistent, TD, how good do you think this defense could be? Thanks, guys. Take this up there.
I think Kenston, my guy, man. A great question again. I think when you look at Jeffrey Simmons, the sky's the limit for him, just in that how I think they're going to be able to use him this year. He's a guy that, for whatever reason, you put him on the outside, he finds a way to get to the quarterback as well. And you're right, the consistency is not there as far as like the big splash plays. He has to be able to, be that guy. It's third down. Like, okay, well, you know what? I think this is a time where Jeffrey Simmons is going to make a play. And that hasn't been consistent enough. He's going to need that more. But I will say there are a lot of plays that he makes. Like, who was it? I forget who it was last year. But I remember a play, like he blew up the inside. And the running back, he got the ball, was like, oh, shoot, I got to change course. And he tried to bounce it outside, and Arden Key tackled him, and it was for a loss. Those are the type of plays that he does make consistently.
That don't show up on the stat sheet.
That don't show up in the stat sheet. Flash matching hands, and tipping the ball. He's one of the best in the league, in my opinion, at doing that, And that's something that you have to see also. But the splash plays, the huge, huge impact plays, you got to have more. He has to get double-digit sacks. He has to get double-digit.
Agreed, yeah. You get that big contract. You have to see there has to be numbers that do show up in the stat sheet, but you are right, TD. There were plenty of plays last year where Big Jeff would blow up the play and someone else would get the sack. Like Danico Autry would come in and clean it up, or Arden Key or whoever it was.
Watch the Colts games, man.
Yeah.
He and Quentin Nelson, those guys go at it. But, he be folding Quentin Nelson up like that chair you sitting in, man. A church banquet chair folds him up, man.
Jeff has won more of those battles than he's lost against Quentin Nelson for sure. But do need to see more consistency from Big Jeff. Big thanks to Kenston for that question on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll take a quick break here. We'll wrap up our TD Power Hour when we come back. I have a question for TD that I want to know, and we've got more people chiming in on our text line as well. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport out here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open, filling in for Jared Stillman here on Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tomorrow, 102.5 The Game's Chase McCabe and Joe Dubin filling in for Stillman and Company, broadcasting live from the Grove Golf Course from 3 to 6 p.m. with live updates on the Live Golf Tournament brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. Lots of golf this week. We're out here at the 615 Open at Hermitage Golf Course, benefiting Souls for Souls. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman today. Doing our TD Power Hour, wrapping it up here, and we've gotten some great interaction from you on our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. If you want to get involved, text or call 615-737-1025. Before we get back to our audience questions here, TD, I did want to pose this to you. We saw the news today. I think it was Seth Walder who broke it, that the Titans made 2 hires in their analytics department, Alex Rogers, and then excuse me on the pronunciation here, Aaron Sajal Davis from the Chiefs, who was a data scientist. Titans in the John Robinson era were kind of known for not having a ton in the analytics area. It seems like they're trending in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's funny, analytics, they're nothing but like back in the day we called them tendencies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's really all it is. But it's just funny to me, like the reluctance to accept it. I don't think it should be the end-all, be-all. But this is an example of, you heard Amy Adams Strunk, you heard what she said as far as moving this organization, this franchise, into a more modern mindset, a more modern approach.
Yeah.
That's what this is, right? Because tendencies, the difference to me between tendencies and analytics are tendencies were something that, people with a more functional knowledge of the game researched and found.
Yes.
Right? It's not like, 37% of the time it's this. It's not that.
It's looking at tape and
right. Whereas analytics is more transactional.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're getting the mathematicians in there who can say, 3rd and 4,
right,
this is what they tend to
right,
do. It's more numbers-based than actual experience-based.
And that has its place. But there's something, I think John Harbaugh is best in the league at balancing the two, right? Because, you still got to be able to work off your gut. And he's able to do both. The Ravens have been very progressive as far as their analytical approach. But then also there's times where it's like, I don't give a daggone how this percentage looks. It's 4th down and 3. You know what? I'm trusting my guys to make a play, and they do it. Of course, that didn't happen in the
it did not.
in the divisional round, you know what I mean? Because a guy by the name of Jeffrey Simmons folded Marshall Yonder, and then, but that's a different story.
Well, I know Jared always talks about how, and I think he brings up the Dolphins game where Mike Vrabel decided to go for 2 down 8 and get it to a 6-point game, ended up winning them the football game. But the Bills a few weeks later, I believe, could be wrong there, they did the same thing and they kicked it. And his question is, how are their analytics different? But I think it's never strictly analytics. It's analytics and feel together to make those decisions in those situations.
And feel is so important. And it's funny because, you talk to some of these analytics guys and they'll tell you that momentum isn't real. I'm here to tell you, momentum is 100% real.
For sure.
I know you can't put an algorithm or formula on it, but it's real.
Yeah. And if you see the numbers say 60%, it's a better decision to go for it here, but it's 4th and 1 and your running back just limped off and you have to put in somebody else who you don't feel as good about, that changes the equation there, even though the numbers probably don't change at all.
Yeah. Or we even talked about getting in the rhythm and getting the flow of the game. Like if your quarterback is cooking the whole game, it's 4th and 8. You feel like your guys won't get open? Go, make it happen.
Yeah, and I think that is it's a big part of it too. It can't be strictly numbers, but it also can't be strictly feel because you do have to have all of the context and all of those variables included because if you don't know it, you're going to make the wrong decision a lot. So it is good to see that the Titans are starting to flesh out that analytics department and bring in, Aaron Sajal Davis from the Chiefs, who was a data scientist. So not a football person specifically, I'm sure has football knowledge, but will be able to look at the data and tell you, hey, in this situation, this is what the numbers tell you to do.
And that's the difference,
And we saw Mike Vrabel, who maybe wasn't an analytics guy, but he went with it towards the end of the year there, and it ended up stealing the Titans a win on the road.
Yeah.
So it is important stuff to know. Again, it's our TD Power Hour here. We're wrapping it up. Final few minutes here of our second hour on the program. If you have any last-second questions you want to get in, text us 615-737-1025. Our text and phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. TD, an addition today elsewhere in the league, David Shaw, hired by the Broncos as a senior personnel executive. He interviewed with the Titans, and we've seen him on the NFL Network and stuff doing it. Obviously, he coached Andrew Luck at Stanford towards the end of his career after Jim Harbaugh left. But good to see him get back into the league, and definitely a smart football guy who will help Sean Payton out there.
Very smart. I really like that addition, and watching him, with his draft coverage, those times where I watched NFL Network, definitely a great job there with them. And I think, you look at a guy like that, he's somewhat fresh off of college, right? So, you definitely have a good perspective, of some things. So, yeah, I like the move. That's great for Denver.
Wrapping up our TD Power Hour here on Stillman and Company. Again, Tehran's on all show long, but we figured let's give you an hour. See what you want to hear, and we've had some great interaction there. Tehran, the TD Power Hour brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. TD, why don't you tell us a little bit about ESPN Bet?
Yeah, absolutely, man. ESPN Bet, it has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to the championship, and this summer, maybe not for the Braves, but that's a different story. It is the exclusive sportsbook at ESPN, the only place to find special offers and promotions from your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the summer. New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So absolutely download ESPN Bet today. What a play. You must be 21 or older and in Tennessee. For problem gambling support, call or text TN Redline at 800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. See the app for details.
I don't know about that with the Braves. They just shelled my Tigers the last 3 days.
Yeah.
Tigers scored 2 runs in 3 games.
Any chance I get to, get a little
just a
body
little
shot
Mets jab in.
Yeah, got to do it.
Well, the good news is this week in the TD Power Hour, TD's sticking around. We still got one more hour left on the program. In the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to talk a little college football as we are within 75 days of week 1 in the college season. And then we'll also get back to some Titans towards the end of the show. Do want to let you know, tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls. Pre-game at 6:20, first pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan. Presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Cottle Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Again, one more hour left on the program here on a beautiful Thursday evening here out at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open. It's been a blast out here. Beautiful evening as it looks like the golf's starting to wrap up in the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. When we come back, we'll start up our third hour with some college football talk. Jake Lyman, Tehran Davenport in for Jared Stillman. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour on this Thursday, Stillman and company. Jared Stillman on vacation, Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, TD out here at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. It has been a fun afternoon, beautiful evening on what is, as Joe Dubin would say, the longest day of the year today, summer solstice. So still plenty of sunlight out here as the golf wraps up in the 615 Open. Again, a great event out here at Hermitage Golf Course. Stillman Company brought to you by Jarrett Companies, Fire and Commercial Plumbing, HVAC Division. Call 615-515-1270 or visit jarrettcompaniesinc.com. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport out here at the 615 Open. Just had our TD Power Hour. In our second hour of the program, we're going to get away from the Titans for a second here. We've talked a lot of Titans. Let's go to some college football here, TD. We're getting closer to the new season, and the biggest development in college football this year, the 12-team playoff. We've moved from 2 to 4 and then all the way to 12, and I got to say I'm fired up about it.
Yeah, I am, but I'm not. You know what I mean? Because it's just – I don't like the way just this constant desire to change things.
I do agree with that.
But, yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'll definitely say that. And, you look at some of these teams, that have been really good but just not good enough to get in. Look at Georgia last year. I wonder what would have happened.
One loss in the SEC championship, and they're the 6th team. And Florida State goes undefeated, and they don't make it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big reasons why I'm excited for it is there won't be as much controversy about who gets in and who doesn't, because if you're borderline 12th or 13th best team in the country, you're probably not winning the championship anyway. It's not like you're getting it stolen away from you where you would be 2 wins away from a national championship. You would have to win against the 5th best team, which if you're the 5th best team or the 5 seed, you could honestly be the number 2 team in the country because the byes go to the conference champions.
Right.
So the 5 seed is probably going to be name second best SEC team. They will be the 5 seed. So there won't be as much controversy. But I think it's great for these programs, Power 5 programs, or Power 4, I guess I should say now, who aren't your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Texas, who, and again, I mentioned Virginia Tech back on Tuesday because that's where I went, but Penn State would be another example who's been so close to getting to the 4 at times, but just can't get over the hump. They could get into the 12-team playoff. Teams in the ACC, maybe North Carolina, NC State. You look at the Big Ten, Penn State is the big one, Wisconsin maybe, but those types of programs who maybe had a 1% chance to play for a national championship, now there's a decent chance you get into that 12.
Yeah, there is a decent chance. I just hope that, with this, you don't see these super lopsided games that by the second quarter, you're like, yeah, I don't think this was a good matchup.
That is the worry, and I'm going to look up here the final CFP rankings from last year because that is the worry that if it is the number 2 team in the country, the loser of the SEC championship, let's say Texas loses to Georgia and Texas is the 5 seed, they're playing. Well, this isn't a great example because it would have been Texas-Oklahoma last year if that was what you were looking at, but that would be a great game, get another Red River rivalry. But, let's say Arizona, they were 14th. Arizona going to Texas for a college football playoff game.
About to get ugly.
Yeah, you're worried about that. But you'll get great games in the middle where maybe you see an Oregon Penn State or an Ohio State Ole Miss that you wouldn't see in the past, but those guys get a chance to go into the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
I think the best part about it, though, is that we're going to get campus site playoff games. Imagine how good those atmospheres are going to be.
Crazy good.
You're getting college football level atmospheres, but times 10 because your season's on the line.
The stakes are on the line. Yeah, stakes are high.
All the biggest games in college football are played at neutral sites right now, whether it's conference championship games or national semifinals, national championships. Now you're going to get this 6-11 game between 2 teams that know that if they win, they get to go to be one of the final 8 teams in the country or their season ends. I would hate to be the road team in that situation because the quarterback's not hearing anything.
Nothing. And you have to be able to, communicate, and then you see those claps, trying to snap the ball and
Yeah.
all that. That's the lifting the legs.
Did did they say that they're putting in-helmet communication in for
Yeah,
college this
they did
year?
say that. They
So
did say
we
that.
won't see all those funky signs being held up on the sideline anymore. So makes it a little bit easier, I guess. But certainly going to be fun to see what the 12-team playoff looks like. The SEC, you would think 4 spots is probably the minimum for the SEC. You'll get
Crazy.
you'll get the SEC champion. You would think at minimum there are 2 other SEC teams in the top 12,
Yeah.
maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see that, especially, yeah, I mean, yeah. I'll just say that.
I mean,
yeah.
the teams that you look at now, Georgia and Texas, I think, are probably the preseason favorites. Alabama's always up there, even with Nick Saban moving on.
Moving on, yeah.
And then you look at Ole Miss, and even Tennessee
Yeah,
could be
I
in the
think
mix
Missouri
for it.
could be a good
Missouri, yeah. Luther Burden, that dude, I saw him when they came to Vandy last year. That dude's going to be a problem.
Yak City. Yak City. He reminds me of DJ Moore.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just want to see, and Jordan Reed, he made a good point with this. I want to see if he's going to be able to have some production from the outside.
Yeah.
I remember that was the big thing against A.J. Brown. They said, well, he didn't have production from the outside. I said, well, go look at his sophomore year. He did. But nevertheless, that's something I want to see if he's able to do this year, because that's going to help his draft stock.
Yeah, Luther Burden and that Missouri team, I think that's a very popular sleeper pick of a team that could move up. But, I mean, the SEC is so loaded that who knows who could end up being in that 12-team playoff at the end. Tennessee is an interesting one, and I think that a lot of that hinges on Nico Iamaleava and whether in his first season as the starter that he is as good as Tennessee fans.
I would try to say that, man.
Nico Iamaleava, I believe, is the correct pronunciation. I've been able to lock down Uiagalelei, like that one after a few years of practice, but Vol fans, if I'm getting it wrong, let me know. I think
they will.
He put out a video of some sort saying how to say it. I think that is Iamaleava, but that'll be the story for the Vols this year. There's a lot of talent on that team, but does the young quarterback step up? He looked good in the bowl game, but bowl games are very different than having to go into an SEC road environment and go win.
And then even there's not just an SEC road environment. They got one at Oklahoma. You got week 2. They're going to be facing NC State. You look at they're going to have back-to-back home games, right? Against Florida and Alabama. So you have those. It's going to be a tough road ahead for Nico. But I think you're right. It does his playmaking ability too, because it's not just the arm. He's a guy that could run with it too.
Tennessee, part of that middle mix in the SEC, now adding Texas and Oklahoma. And Trevor Maddich mentioned Oklahoma as another sleeper for the college football playoffs. So we will see how that sorts itself out. We will talk about Tennessee, and maybe a little Vandy in the next segment as well, as we talk some college football here on the program. Stillman and company. If you want to get involved, text or call 615-737-1025. Our text and phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman here at Hermitage Golf Course for the 615 Open. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. 6-3 the game, broadcasting live from the 615 Open at Hermitage Golf Course. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared Stillman on vacation this week. Back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian Safar, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We're talking college football over the last couple of minutes here, talking about that 12-team playoff being put in this year and how home games are going to be a part of the first round. We're going to have campus site playoff games starting this year. And on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, we have Joe who has a thought on that. Joe, how we doing?
Hi, guys. First of all, I am for a 12-team playoff. I think it's a great idea. But I'm exactly the opposite on playing home games. I mean, you've got teams that are rewarded by having a great season by playing a game at home. And give an example. Say Ole Miss is a 9 seed and Wisconsin's an 8. You're going to send Ole Miss to a winter game in Madison, Wisconsin, where Ole Miss and Wisconsin should be playing in like the Gator Bowl or the Citrus Bowl, somewhere where their fans can go, enjoy a great season, the players can go, enjoy a trip to a bowl game. You're denying them a trip to a bowl game essentially for one of those teams because they're going to lose and they're not going to go any further. I think it would elevate the lower-level bowls. Everybody talks about there's too many bowls that are meaningless. This would give some of those lower-level bowls, the Citrus, the Gator, those kind of bowls, a real meaning and an inclusion in the playoffs. Let me see what you think about that.
Thank you for the call, Joe. That is a point that I hadn't thought about, especially in like an 8-9 matchup where it's so close and it's such a subjective argument, and one of those teams has to go on the road.
I like that point. I think it's a really good point. And, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But it's one of the things where it's like, hey, man, you got to win.
I know. I'm thinking about it from a fan perspective of, like, tuning in and hearing that atmosphere. Or, for instance, if Virginia Tech hosted a game, I would love to be in that atmosphere. But I think about it from a fairness standpoint. It is different. And I like the point Joe made about bowl games.
I love that.
There are too many bowl games that mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And you know, I know the Pop-Tart Bowl got some recognition this year because of their edible mascot, but like there we go. TD's got the Pop-Tart socks on. Yeah. The Pop-Tart Bowl was awesome, and everybody tuned in to see the edible mascot. But bowls are having to resort to gags like that to get people to care about it.
It's crazy.
Which it is crazy. It's like and I guess that is the byproduct of the playoff, because in the past, the national championship, it was so rare for your team to actually get there that it meant more to go to a BCS game and go play in the Orange Bowl and go play in the Sugar Bowl. Now it's like, all right, if I'm playing in the Orange Bowl and it's not in the playoff, what do I care?
Yeah.
Like, look at Florida State. I understand circumstances there with Florida State that they were very disappointed they didn't make the playoff, but half their team opted out of playing in the Orange Bowl. 15 years ago, can you imagine half of a team? It was not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's facts.
That's a very good point, Joe. Appreciate the call. Again, if you want to get in on the conversation, 615-737-1025. Text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We talked a little Tennessee in the last segment. I do want to touch on Vanderbilt slightly because I know that Vandy's coming off a 2-10 season. They lost their last 10 games of the year after beating Hawaii and Alabama A&M. Clark Lee coming back for his 4th season, and expectations aren't high, but they did a lot this offseason that there's to like. They brought back C.J. Taylor on that defense, who that dude is an NFL player, and I'm sure he had options of places that he could have gone. DeRicky Wright, who initially went into the portal, committed to Texas A&M, he's back at Vanderbilt now. So they brought back both those safeties. New quarterback. They brought in 2 in the transfer portal, including Diego Pavia from New Mexico State, who their offensive coordinator is from there. I'm blanking on his Tim something. And then they brought in Jerry Kill, who was the head coach at New Mexico State, as an analyst for them. And firsthand experience, Justin Fuente was the head coach at Virginia Tech for most of my time in college. He was not very good at Virginia Tech, but he had one good year. It was 2019. Hendon Hooker was the quarterback. And Jerry Kill, that was the only year he spent in Blacksburg, and you could just see the difference. You could see it. So I I'm not saying high hopes for Vanderbilt, but I think just keep an eye on them. I don't think it's going to be another 2-win season for Vandy.
Okay, so they should be competitive. Hey, they still have the tall quarterback. He was like 6'5", 6'6".
Mike Wright, or no, he started last year. A lot of hype around him, no, but he transferred.
He did transfer. Okay.
I am blanking on the name. I will find that. But, yes, their quarterbacks and wide receivers, a lot of them went into the transfer portal this year. But they brought in 2 quarterbacks in the portal, Pavia and then Nate Johnson from Utah, who's a former 4-star recruit. More of a runner, but can throw. So maybe we see a combination of those 2 guys. But I'm not saying Vandy's going to be competing for SEC championships. I'm just saying I think I saw that their win line was set at like 2.5 or 3.5. I just feel like there's enough wins on that schedule. They open with Virginia Tech, but then the rest of their non-conference schedule is pretty winnable. And then the SEC, 2 years ago, they stole 2 games against Will Levis and Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
So you never know what could happen there.
Yep. No, facts. That Virginia Tech game, is that home or is it?
It's in Nashville, but there's a return trip to Blacksburg next year.
Okay, so you got a home and home.
Yes.
The next couple. That's dope.
I got most of my family's coming in for that one. An excuse to come to Nashville and go see the Hokies play. So, again, AJ Swan is the name of the quarterback you were thinking of. I think he so much talent. He just turned the ball over too much last year, which was the issue. But talked about Tennessee. I think a lot of their season hinges on Nico and what he's able to do in his second
100%.
year. And Vanderbilt, I think that it's did everything that they put together this offseason work. Clark Lee's now the defense, calling the defense. All the transfers they brought in, did it work, and did it take them in a positive direction? Quickly, before we move on from college football here, Heisman candidates. I think we lost a lot of high-level quarterbacks this year and players in general, but there's still some really good players to keep an eye on. I think it'll be an exciting Heisman race with probably Quinn Ewers and Shadur Sanders are the 2 that a lot of people are looking at.
It's it's a quarterback award. You know what I mean? But I tell you what, Travis Hunter is so intriguing.
He is.
So intriguing. And I hope that they really respect the fact that he goes hard on both sides, offense and defense,
Playing both sides above a high school level is just – it takes a different kind of athlete to be able to do that.
And we talking about being a starter on both sides.
The starter. Probably the best player on both sides.
Man, and it's like, hey, man, it would be cool to see a Charles Woodson flashback.
Yeah.
That's the guy I would like to see win it. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. Beck, Shakur.
Carson Beck, too.
Shadur Sanders, Beck, just because of where he is, like, he's going to have a shot. So it's going to be cool to watch. Luther Bolden,
Yeah.
There's going to be some guys out there. Burden. I always say Bolden because he reminds me of Anquan the way he plays. Yeah.
No, I like the Travis Hunter point there because, yes, it is a quarterback award, but you would hope that the voters would give him a little extra bump for playing both sides. Like, if he ends up having a 1,000-yard receiving season with 6 or 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the defensive side of the ball, I think the biggest thing is Colorado going to be good? I think it shouldn't have anything to do with winning the Heisman. Like, we saw Jaden Daniels, he won it despite LSU having 3 losses. If Colorado is 4-8 this year, I think it becomes a lot harder for Travis Hunter or Shadur Sanders to win that award. But if they take a step and they make a bowl game and you see Coach Prime's vision starting to work, I think you could see it.
Yeah, definitely could see it. I'll tell you, give you a sleeper, though, a dark horse. And when J.C. Latham was asked about him, like, he raved about him.
Yeah.
Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
I had to double check because I thought he was leaving Alabama, but he's going to be there. So that's a dark horse.
I can see that too, and he had his Heisman moment against Auburn last year on Black Friday. One of the best plays I've ever seen live. I was in Las Vegas with Vandy and went on in the hotel like right after one of our games and flipped it on. And that was the second play I think I saw was the 4th and 20 or whatever it was in the corner of the end zone. And he was saying, "Give me my Heisman after that,"
Yeah.
which maybe a year early. Maybe Jalen Milroe can take over. And despite slipping on that fourth down against Michigan, he had a solid game in that one as well. So lots of guys to look forward to in the college football season, which, again, is 75 days away, less than 75 days away until we get to Labor Day weekend and get back onto the gridiron. And that 12-team playoff, I'm telling you, it's going to keep more fans involved throughout the season because if you win the ACC, we saw last year that doesn't guarantee you a spot. Now it does. If your team sneaks into the ACC or the Big 12 championship game, you can go play for a national championship. So excited for the college football season. When we come back, we're going to talk some more Titans here on Stillman and Company. Talk some special teams. We did defense yesterday. We did offense in the first hour. Let's talk some
phases.
special teams. I mean, we got TD for 6 hours over 2 days. We got to cover the whole team. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport out here at Hermitage Golf Course at the 615 Open, benefiting Souls for Souls. Filling in for Jared here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Back here from Hermitage Golf Course at the 615 Open, Stillman and company. Final couple segments here on this Thursday evening. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport with you. Again, live out here at Hermitage Golf Course. Longest day of sunlight of the year. Sun's still high in the sky. It's a little hot out here, TD, but we're making it work.
Sunlight shining.
We are making it work. It has turned out to be a beautiful day and a lot of great stuff going down here at the 615 Open, again, benefiting Souls for Souls. Wrapping up the show in this final 30 minutes, TD, we talked a lot of defense yesterday, a lot of offense earlier in the show. Let's talk special teams.
Yeah.
A lot of people seem to be making the assumption Nick Folk, good to go. He had a good year last year. He'll be the kicker this year. Ryan Stonehouse, the hope is that he's healthy and ready to go for week one. But I don't know if we 100% know either of those things. So what have you seen from special teams, and what can fans maybe expect from that group?
You better hope Nick Folk is ready to go. The guy, his name slips my mind. He wore number 47. Man, he kicked one into the into the river, into the lake. Man, it wasn't good.
Okay, so not a lot of depth behind Nick Folk.
And I mean, teams don't usually have depth at
you only
kicker,
need one.
But still, he did put one in the lake. So you got that. Stonehouse, I mean, just seeing him out there in itself was a really good thing. And I smile because, like, that dude, you just can't help but like him. You know what I mean? He's just, just happy-go-lucky. I'm glad he was out there.
I love that he got his real estate license in the offseason. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm an NFL player, and I'm out there on Sundays in the biggest situations, but I'll sell you your house, too, like, if you want to.
And one of the best punters, and he set a daggone record.
As a rookie.
I tell you what's funny, I got a picture of him. So the one pregame, they came in, and they had shirts of Morgan Cox. And they wore the shirts, and I got a picture of him. This dude was so happy. I'm going to find it and show it to you. But, yeah, I mean, if they could get him out there, like, you're talking about a weapon. And I've been fortunate to cover teams that have had good punters. Not good, premier punters, right? You look at Brett Kern. Andy Lee with the 49ers.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he was at one point, like, their only Pro Bowl.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And now we're seeing your guy, Ryan Stonehouse. And just the way these guys flip the field, you would be amazed at how much defensive players appreciate that. Like, it's a 3-and-out at the 10-yard line, and you see them boot a ball, and the team takes over at, like, the 30. And it
makes it so much easier when you can get that coffin corner and lock them down deep in their own red zone.
Exactly.
I mean, we talked earlier about how the Titans have had such dominant running backs for years. How about this punting, like, succession that they've got? Stonehouse following right after Kern and Craig Hentrick. Like, the Titans – they know how to find good punters.
They definitely know how to find them, and it's like they stumble upon them. Yeah, really, that's how. Here goes the picture right there.
Oh my God.
He's just so happy. He's so happy with the shirt on. But yeah, you're right. They do have a way of just finding really good punters, and it helps so much. I remember Dean Pease. He said Brett Kern was the MVP of the defense.
Yeah.
And he said it tongue in cheek, but just to let you know the impact that a guy like that has, man.
Well, looking at special teams, Folk and Stonehouse are obviously the two big names, and Morgan Cox, the long snapper, too. But the new kickoff rules, it's going to be very different because instead of kickers being incentivized for touchbacks, now they're incentivized to let the guy return it because the touchbacks go to the 30, if I'm not mistaken now.
Yeah.
So what are the Titans looking at there in terms of who could be returning? I know some teams have talked about some creative solutions back there. Steelers with Justin Fields. Yeah. But Titans have plenty of athletes who could go back there and return those kicks and maybe make some big plays.
Yeah, if you see the Madden preview, they have Justin Fields back there fielding a punt, and he gives it to somebody else. I forget who. But anyhow, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot more two guys back there as opposed to the one like before. And I talked to Cole Anderson about it because that was something I was curious about because – Brian Callahan made a great point when he said that this is going to be another offensive play. And it's going to be he didn't use the word chaos, but something like that, about how when you actually the first time you're going to see it, because you can't only get so live in practice. So the first time you're going to really get to see it is going to be in preseason games. It's like it's going to be chaotic, and that's true.
It's going to be really weird the first time you turn on NFL Red Zone or something. And I know you're out at the game, so you don't get a chance to do that all that often. But like, turn on NFL Red Zone and you hear Scott Hansen go, "Here's our octobox of all of our kickoffs," and it's like the kicker's the only one in the frame. Like, it is going to be strange to see that for the first time.
That's going to be strange. Yeah, and with Cole Anderson, the special teams coach, he said that they're going to strategize it. Like, there's more strategy that goes into it now than before, because it's almost like, not every kick is going to be returned, but you look in the past, it's like, yeah, you want to strategize and have something ready, but there's only so much you could do, and B, how many times you see them like this?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Watching
just letting it go over their
yeah.
heads. And the Titans, at least in recent memory, haven't had too much explosiveness in the return game. I mean, when Kyle Phillips got drafted, I think the hope was that he was going to be a guy who could contribute back there. I know Taywan Taylor was another guy who maybe you thought could make plays back there. Darius Jennings was probably one of the best returners the Titans have had in the last few years.
His return against, I believe it was the Cowboys, was the last one I can remember being a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, I can't off the top of my head that maybe this is what the Titans needed to kind of open up that return game. And I don't know how often you want to put some of your star guys back out there, but Burks with his speed. Tajay Spears is the one that I was thinking about that maybe you could put back there. I think that depends on how many snaps he gets on offense.
Yeah. I mean, Haskins has been back there too, so you have those guys. So it's just going to be cool watching it play out, and we saw some of it, but again, there are no pads on it. It's not live.
Yeah.
So you don't know how it's really going to see. And I saw John Harbaugh. He was talking about just right now, well, not right now, but OTAs and minicamp is just, okay, let's see how the spacing is going to work. That's something, because as you mentioned, like the whole alignment and everything is different. So you do have that.
I'll throw a curveball at you here. We talked about Justin Fields. Malik Willis, if he's on the 53, is that a guy? I mean, if there's one thing you can say about Malik Willis, he's an athlete, and he can make people miss in the open field.
Yeah.
That's a guy that, if the Titans want to get creative back there, could you see it?
Hey, listen, man, he could get his rest in peace. He could get his Frank Wycheck on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Home run throwback.
Hey,
let's see it. So I think that would be cool.
We'll see when September rolls around if we see number 7 back there returning kicks.
Imagine that.
I would say the chance is low, but hey, maybe just a couple times. It doesn't have to be every time. Just every once in a while.
A few times.
Throw the guy back
give him a
there.
look, and then you play off of that. You know what I mean? That's going to be cool. I tell you another thing, too, and I didn't think about it until I asked our coach, Anderson, about it. Onside kicks. I was like, hey, coach, like.
That is true.
Are we going to not see onside kicks now? But he said you could do it, but you have to declare it. But it's so much harder because of that spacing and the alignment now. I don't know how you're going to be able to get one of those.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment the first few weeks, seeing all of these new kickoff rules. Quickly on punt return, I know Jaquan Jackson, coming from Tulane, has a pedigree of being a really good punt returner. Well, that's the issue with all Titans punt returners the last few years.
Yeah, he has to catch the ball more consistent. But when he catches it, like, he could do some things.
Does it feel like he's the leader in the clubhouse there, pun intended, here at the 615 Open?
Tough.
It is early.
It's because Mason Kinsey, look, man, like, apocalypse comes, like, me and Mason, we're bonking up because he knows how to survive, man.
He's a cockroach.
Yeah, he's still in the mix. So you got him and then Kyle Phillips too. That's still an option.
Paul and Joe, before we came on, were talking about Nick Westbrook-Akina and how he always seems to just stick around and find a spot on the roster. Mason Kinsey is that guy too. I mean,
absolutely.
Is it Barry College that he went to?
Barry College.
College. Let the construction crew come through here.
Mason was a really big-time hooper too. He was
really?
a good bat. He was. I forget what school. Sam Phelan was doing a story on like what other sport guys would play, and Mason had said basketball, and he was telling us some schools that he got recruited by. Hopkins played at Clemson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it was perfect because I had just called him the Dennis Rodman, a wide receiver. And he smiled. He was like, yeah, well, I played at Clemson. I said, yeah, see.
Was it D-Hop who bought the Papa Shot last year?
Yeah, yep.
Do we know if that's still standing? The second one?
I don't. It might be. I saw a couple. I know they got a ping pong table in there, because I saw a couple. What's his name? Jarvis Brownlee Jr.
Oh, yeah.
and James Williams. They're always on IG Live, and TK Latham is too, and they're in there. And I saw the ping pong table where the Papa Shot was the first time. Then they moved it, and I don't know if it's still there.
D-Hop said, you break it, you buy it. So
Break it, you
maybe
buy it.
somebody had to write a little check there
Yeah.
to Mr. Hopkins.
Bring me my money.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Wrapping up the program here on this Thursday evening. Again, a beautiful day here at the 615 Open out at Hermitage Golf Course. Benefiting Souls for Souls. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport in for Jared. We'll wrap up the show when we come back. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Wrapping up our Thursday show, Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, in for Jared Stillman. Jared, just a couple more days of vacation. Tomorrow, don't forget, out at Live Golf Nashville at the Grove. It'll be chasing Big Joe from 3 to 6. And you can tune in tomorrow, 9 a.m. I got a quick turnaround to get back on the air. For's Company, 9 to 12 tomorrow. So
there you go.
Excited for that. Again, wrapping up the show here from the 615 Open at Hermitage Golf Course here in Nashville. TD, you've got some fun plans tomorrow, too, as well.
Oh, yeah.
Going on vacation.
Doing a little traveling, man. It's
vacation season.
I haven't taken a true vacation in a while, so I'm looking forward to it. I got to force myself to unplug. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but I don't use the word try, so I'm going to work on it.
The good news is, I mean, knock on wood here, there's probably no Titans news that would come out in the next week or so.
Yeah, you pray that guys stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble, yes. And you would think a signing or anything like that would probably happen closer to training camp than this. I don't think any free agents still out there are in any hurry to get on a team with training camp still over a month away. Again, wrapping up here at Heritage Golf Course. TD, it's been a beautiful day out here. A little hot, but, we're looking out onto, I don't know what, I think this is the first fairway right here.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful golf course.
It is. It is. I've driven by here many times and never turned in. And I'm not a golfer, so I had no reason to come back here. So it's cool to see it.
And it seems like it's been a great event. I think the golf has started to wrap up, everybody over towards the clubhouse. Now, we've been holding it down on the air while everybody else at the station is out there hitting the links.
Having fun.
Well,
we're having fun, too.
We are having a great time. We did see a video of Chase McCabe out there.
Out there looking like Charles Barkley.
We've seen a few of our hosts out there. Robbie Stanley, he had a good drive, right? His co-host Joe Rexroad was getting off the air here with PK. Joe Dubin almost took down our tent.
Man, thinking he's Mario Andretti or somebody. This ain't Donkey Kong carts, man. Cut it out, man.
I know. To describe to those listening on radio, he did like a figure 8 in front of us. We're probably 4 feet off of this curb. He came up on the curb and pretty much grazed the tent. Almost probably would have collapsed in on us here. We would have had to go to technical difficulties programming or something.
Yeah. Trying to talk through that. You know what I mean?
I know. We were having a conversation, and I'm like, what is he doing? Just weaving back and forth on the grass here. But, again, Jason Big Joe, they'll be out there at Live Golf this weekend. Cool event for Live to come here right after the U.S. Open. Bryson DeChambeau's in town. And
oh, really?
He's showing off his U.S. Open trophy. I think it was Teresa Walker had a video of her holding it because Bryson is just carrying it everywhere he goes.
Is Scott Scheffler here?
No, he's on the PGA. So Liv, we've got like Bryson, Brooks Koepka, John Rahm.
Koepka, he was one of the early ones to jump over.
Yeah, he was part of that first wave with like Dustin Johnson.
Yeah,
and some of those guys. But yeah, that should be a fun event out there at the Grove. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And again, tomorrow afternoon, filling in for Jared, it'll be Chase and Big Joe who are taking you through the afternoon as Jared wraps up his week of vacation. TD, it's been fun the last 2 days. We have covered about everything you could possibly cover in a Titans offseason.
We need to do it again. We might have to make it Fives Company one time.
Hey, that's true. We had you on for our Memorial Day show. You might have to come on our Saturday show more often.
The Live Five. Yeah, let's do it.
Coming up with a name for that show was one of the longest, most tedious processes ever. I think we went through about 25 names before we settled on Force Company.
It's dope, though.
So if we bring in TD, we've got to completely scrap it and go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, just, occasionally.
Five's Company.
Yeah, four is company, but 5 is alive.
Again, listen in tomorrow, 9 to noon. It'll be me, Nick Keyser, Nick Frazier, and Connor Newt. And then we'll be back on at 9 to 11 on Saturday. No breaks here this weekend, but plenty to talk about. I'm sure we'll get into some Pred stuff. I know there's been some stuff in the hockey world that's been going down some trades. NHL draft is a week away, a week from tomorrow. And the NBA draft's right after, too.
Rolling and rolling.
that is one thing. It was our GM Sean Ford said to me on Monday when I was coming in to start doing this fill-in for Jared. He was like, hey, sports is the reality show for men. 52 weeks a year, it never stops. It's like there's always something. I mean,
And for women too, man. That WNBA is lit, man.
That is true. We talked
lit.
some WNBA yesterday, and again, that's besides MLB baseball, it's WNBA right now in terms of actual sports being played. Obviously, we got Game 6 Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow, and then the Vols they're playing coming up on Saturday, taking on Texas A&M best of 3 for a national championship. Should be a fun weekend of sports.
Yeah.
TD, I know you're not a big hockey guy, but have you seen any of this Oilers-Panthers series?
I did. I saw. I think Jared was at the last game. I saw the one to make it 3-2, and I saw like that. It was what 5-2 was the.
It was 4-3. Are you talking about when he swept the puck away at the end? Yeah. It's a shame that it ended up being a goal like half a second later, but one of the cooler plays that you'll see, dude just going all out to try and keep it out of the net.
And then just like the effort he made to try not to, slide into the net. It was cool. I was watching that. I was at the Cigar Bar watching that, man. It was good time.
I'm just glad after 5 games on the in the NBA Finals for the second straight year that we've got a decent series. Like we're getting Game 6. It's going back to Edmonton. That place is going to be rocking tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, Canada, it's been 30 years, 25 years, somewhere in there since Canada has won the Stanley Cup.
Wow, man.
So I know that place will be rocking up there.
Grant Fuhr and Wayne Gretzky and the crew.
Yeah. I mean, McDavid, he broke one of Gretzky's records this postseason.
31 years, 1993.
31 years, 1993. Wow. Because we've been talking about some of these curses, like Tennessee is trying to become the first number 1 overall seed in the college baseball tournament to win it in 25 years. But 31 years since just a team from Canada, that's 20% of the league, hasn't been able to win the Stanley Cup. So it would be kind of fitting if Edmonton was able to do it coming back from a 3-0 deficit, if they're able to get that one at home. And then, Game 7's, anything can happen.
Game 7 that's the best two
Best
words
two
in
words in
sports.
sports.
I think it's Super Bowl, but hey, I'm biased.
Yeah, tomorrow night in Edmonton, I believe we'll have coverage on 102.5 The Game.
Yep,
as
that
we
is
have
correct.
for the whole series. And then if Game 7, that'll be on Monday. And I'm sure we'll talk plenty about that tomorrow throughout all of our shows. Again, Chase and Big Joe will be taking over the afternoons tomorrow. They'll be over at the Grove for the Live Golf Tournament. But I'll be on the air again, Forrest Company, 9 to 12. We'll get all of Nick Keyser's reactions to the hockey. He's our hockey guy over there. TD, it's been fun. Final thoughts here as we wrap up our 2 days here filling in for Jared.
Final thoughts, man. No, it's been fun. You've done a great job steering the ship, man. I kind of just got to get in the passenger seat and, watch where you take us. And it's been great, man. Ian has done a great job. We get the music in. We get the sound bites in. It's been fun, man. I had no clue. I knew it was going to be fun, but I had no clue how it was going to go. So great job, man. And, hey, you got my vote. You got my vote. Let's go ahead and get him on the midday show.
We appreciate you, TD, and it's been great talking Titans. We appreciate all the listeners for all their great questions during the TD Power Hour today. Made it a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in the last couple days. I've been filling in for Jared. We appreciate you. Tune in tomorrow, 9 to 12, Force Company, and then Chase and Big Joe out at the Grove. Wrapping up our show here on this Thursday, Stillman and Company, 125-1063 The Game.